Welcome to the Mid-Atlantic Air Museum. My name's Thorne Harkin. I've been a member here since 2016. Today I'm standing in front of a North American SNJ. It was an advanced trainer used by the Navy and Air Force during World War II. We're going to go ahead and give you a cockpit tour today, so let's jump on up. When climbing up on the SNJ, I want to make sure I avoid this trailing edge of the wing and step only on the wing walk. Let's climb on in.
Like any other airplane, I jump in and make sure I adjust the seat height and the rudder pedals. I want to be able to see over the cowling as best as possible and use the rudder pedals without overexerting my legs.
Jack, when you come.
Using a flow, we'll start from the left and work to the right to check all the critical systems. I'm pointing at the fuel selector. It's a multi-position selector starting from reserve, left tank, right tank, and off, with a detent in each position. For takeoff, we'll go ahead and select reserve. We're not actually selecting a reserve fuel tank, but a lower pickup. Let's talk about the hydraulic system. I'm pointing to the hydraulic power valve. By depressing this, I pressurize the hydraulic system. I must do this before I actuate the flaps or landing gear. We can check the pressure on this pressure gauge. Here's the flap handle. I'll go ahead and select down.
After you revive.
Here's the down detent. I'll go ahead and select neutral now. Using the flap indicator forward of the hydraulic pressure gauge, we can select 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees, or 45 degrees. I'll go ahead and select the up detent, and then back to neutral. Forward of that selector is the gear handle. First, I'll press the hydraulic power valve, then lift the gear up out of the down detent into the up detent, and the opposite to put the gear down. Many first-time students have found themselves trying to raise or lower the gear without depressing the hydraulic power valve. It was a common technique of the instructor pilot to guard the gear handle so that way the student didn't accidentally actuate the gear handle instead of the flaps. You're now looking at the hydraulic hand pump. This is used to build hydraulic pressure in this system in the event that the engine-driven pump has failed or the engine is shut down. By pumping this back and forth, I can build the pressure. Above the landing gear handle, you have the rudder trim, elevator trim, and wobble pump. We'll go ahead and set the rudder trim for takeoff. The wobble pump is used to build up fuel pressure for starting or if the engine-driven pump has failed. You can do this by rocking it back and forth or wobbling it. Above all that, we have the throttle quadrant. The throttle from the idle position to the full open. The mixture control from lean to rich. Or the propeller control, currently in the coarse or low speed position. For takeoff or a go-around, we make sure it's full forward or in the fine, high-speed position. If you know the airplane's going to sit for a while, it's a good practice to pull the prop all the way back when shutting it down. We do this to protect the propeller components from the elements and scavenge any remaining oil from the propeller. During the engine run-up, you may hear a loud whoosh. This is the actuation of the propeller controls from fine to coarse pitch. Immediately forward of the throttle quadrant is the tailwheel lock. Currently, it's in the unlocked position. This allows the tailwheel to caster for taxiing or when ground handling. Before takeoff and when I'm aligned with the center line, I'll go ahead and lock the tailwheel. This will help allow me track the aircraft straight during takeoff. Directly below that is the carburetor heat. It is used for carburetor ice. Right now it is in the off position, or cold. Just forward of the hydraulic pressure gauge and adjacent to the flap indicator is a landing gear indicators. After selecting gear down, I visually check these indicators are in the down position. In addition to looking at the landing gear indicator, I will visually inspect the downlock pins. These are located on each wing, covered in a piece of Lexan. In the event that the downlock pins do not engage, an attempt can be made to force them in by pushing the landing gear handle past the down D10. Located on the forward instrument panel, we have the Magneto Switch. We can select left, right, or both to control the ignition. I will test both magnetos during the engine run-up to make sure they're functioning properly. Below this is our electrical panel. Here's the battery, generator, and starter switches. The original centrifugal starter would have to be spun up to speed or energized, and then engaged or meshed to start. This SNJ is accompanied with an oil dilution system, which is really great for the wintertime. Located here are the outside lights to the aircraft. This right side of the electrical panel is called the fire control system. These are safety features to arm the bombs or machine guns on this aircraft. Let's go ahead and look at the instruments. This is the clock, altimeter, suction for the gyros, whiskey compass, airspeed indicator, a barrel type directional gyro, turn and slip indicator, and engine cluster. To the top right, the gyro horizon, G meter, RPM gauge, vertical speed indicator, manifold pressure gauge, cylinder head temp, and outside air temperature. Just below that, we have some modern navigation and radio equipment. Next, I'm going to check the control surfaces, so let's take the control lock off. When checking the flight controls, I move each of them to their stops. I'm checking to make sure that they are free from any obstructions in the cockpit and any control binding. Now let's check to make sure they're correct. Stick right, aileron up. Stick left, aileron down. Elevator up. Elevator down. Rudder right, rudder left. Let's move up from the controls. I can adjust the oil temperature by opening or closing the oil cooler shutter. Above the oil cooler shutter, we have the parking brake. In order to set it, I must depress both brake pedals and pull the T-handle. To release the brakes, just depress both pedals. You're now looking at the reflector gun sight. When turned on, the illuminated reticle will be reflected on a pane of glass. This would then be used to align the guns with the target. Located right of the illuminator is the primer. I would use the primer to dump fuel into the cylinders to aid in starting. Below the rudder pedals are the fresh air and hot air valves. You open and close them with your foot. On the right-hand side of the pilot is the original intercom system and the ADF control head. This was commonly referred to as a coffee grinder. Below the student pilot's seat are the fuel indicators. They are lighted and visible by the front and rear cockpit. They are known for being inaccurate. Therefore, it's a good technique to dip the tanks and use the average fuel burn to figure out your endurance. Let's head back and check out the instructor seat.
Let's go ahead and open up the rear canopy.
The rear cockpit has many of the same instruments and controls as the front cockpit. Some unique features of this SNJ are a swiveling rear seat and gunner's ring for aerial gunnery training. this would have housed a 30 caliber swiveling machine gun.
As soft as the wilderness, and in its song
Well, that concludes our cockpit tour. Some facts about this aircraft is it was built in 1943 at the North American plant in Texas, where it gets its Texan name. It was later surplused in the 50s from Naval Air Station Pensacola. The museum took ownership in 1982. The current paint scheme is done up like a naval test aircraft from NAS Patuxent River.
A unique feature of the SNJs were these lights, used by the landing signal officer to verify the gear is down and locked before coming aboard carrier. The SNJ-4B, B denoting bomber, can carry these 100-pound practice bombs, and these machine guns, for bombing and gunnery training.
The Mid-Atlantic Air Museum hopes you enjoyed your tour. If you'd like to take a ride in this aircraft or book it for your next air show, please inquire. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.